Welcome back to Dave Knows Comics for another how-to drawing session, and today's episode is all about gesturing or pre-drawing. Now, I want to make something perfectly clear. Last time, if you got the impression that gesturing or pre-drawing is just something for amateurs or people who aren't that confident in their abilities, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, the vast majority of comic book artists, especially masters like Jim Lee, will pre-draw or gesture just about every time they do a drawing. And that's why I'm dedicating an entire episode to gesturing today. So I'm going to show you different kinds of gesturing. So the first one I'm going to do is this right here, where I'm doing a lot of scribbles. It's going to be a lot of line work, and it's just creating general shapes, just creating a vibe, creating a feel, and I'm just trying to see what comes down. And it's not precise at all. As you can see, it's very sloppy looking, and that's just because I'm trying to get the motion down, the flow down. I'm just trying to get the feel for what's going on. I'm just trying to get my motions down. All right. You can start to see what I'm doing here. You can begin to see a shape happen. You can see the, a head, a shape structure of a head, and that's kind of what happens. A drawing will eventually reveal itself this way. You have something in mind, but you're kind of going, and I do have something in mind. I do have a specific character in mind, which you can begin to see taking shape here, but that's what's going to happen. You start drawing the way you want it to go down, and you just kind of feel out the motions here. So that big circle right here is the eye, and now I know it's in the right place. And if it's not, I get to move it around, as you saw that I did. You can customize this any way you want, because you just add layers upon layers of drawings and motions. That nose, see, I didn't like the way that looks, so I'm turning it down a little bit and recreating it. It's okay, because as I make these decisions, I want to make more of a chin. Look at that. You see, you kind of start figuring it out, and when you step away from it, you start seeing what works and what doesn't, and you just adjust the drawing accordingly. And that's one way. So here's another way. Same character, same idea. I'm sure a lot of you have figured out who that was. So same character, but I'm going to show you a different kind of drawing, a different kind of pre-drawing, a different kind of gesture. Now I'm going to start here with that eye line, that right there in the middle of the face eye line. Now, because this is a profile, you also can't see the vertical line up and down the middle of the face, but it's there. And once again, I'm going to be drawing the nose, followed by the ear. Now, this is still gesturing, where I'm just placing certain key spots. Now, it's not as fluid, it's not as stretchy or as sloppy. This is a little more precision based, where I'm just locating everything and placing them in the right spots, and just making sure that things look the way I want them to, and just giving myself indicators of where the eyes are and where the ears are and where everything needs to be, and of course the mask right here. Now, I'm actually going to take this one all the way into completion for this one, so hold on, in case you haven't figured out who this is yet. But I feel like, how could you not? But okay, so here right now I'm drawing like the mask shape and all that, and going into it. Now, I'm beginning to form a little more of pre-drawing. Now, some people will say that gesturing and pre-drawing, there really is no difference. But for me, pre-drawing is more actually drawing the figure, drawing what you're looking to draw, where gesturing is more about, fluidity, more about just getting a feel for things, just getting a rhythm going. Where pre-drawing, you're actually committing to details and actually doing a little more work beyond that. And yeah, there's a gray area where sometimes you're in between. But for me, I would definitely consider this pre-drawing, because I am putting a lot more detail work than I normally would for gesturing, so I would consider this pre-drawing. And right here, this is great. I want to extend the neck, put it in a different position, make it a little thicker, so I can do that. That's what's great about pre-drawing, is you can make these adjustments without it really hurting your final drawing. You don't have to go back. And here's the other big key, because I'm going to erase this right here. Now, since this is all about gesturing, I'm going to just flash forward a little bit on this and speed this up, because you don't need to see the final pencils. I just want to show you how it translates. However, the key about erasing is when you're gesturing, I like to use a lighter pencil, as I've mentioned before. That way it erases pretty easily, and you won't see that as much in the final product. Okay, so now moving on to the final pencil work, and now I'm just committing to that drawing that I did earlier. Now, some people commit more or less to the pre-drawing. Sometimes you don't have to stick to the pre-drawing or the gesture. You can just move beyond it. You could say, hey, okay, I know what I would change. I don't need to re-gesture or anything, and just move on from there. And it depends on what you want to do. So how faithful do you want to stick to it? That's up to you. And the same thing when you become an inker. Like right here, that mouth line, the little smile line, I decided to change where it goes, because that was the final detail work and I didn't gesture it out. All right, now this is going to be a gesture from the last episode, and I'm speeding this up because, well, you just saw it in the last episode. I just figured now that you know what gesturing is, or I spend a little more time talking about it, you can get a different appreciation for it. And I don't want to retread it, so I'm just going to speed it up really quickly. So here you are. Now that's going to be that cross section that I have, as you saw in the middle, but I also made those lines right there to indicate where the nose extends between the eyes down to the mouth. And that's just another form of gesturing, something else you can do to help plot things out and give you an idea. Now, time for a full figure. Now, you see this line right here. I'm drawing this line in the middle. Now, this is indicating the direction the entire body is going. All right. Now, this is going to be an entire drawing gesture for an entire body. So we're going to have that middle line right there. And this is indicating the head, obviously, and that's down where the bottom is. Now, so we're going to create the head. And the idea here is to just show that this character's in motion. So we need that original spinal line to show us how the character is going to move. Now, you don't want to do it too much, but again, this is a great way to show you where this character is going and put a little more oomph into their stance, because nothing's worse in comic books than a stagnant, boring, flat character that's just standing perfectly still. You know, unless you're trying to say something with it, don't do that. Try to have your characters have dynamic poses and look interesting. It's something that you'd start doing eventually when you realize the differences between comic book art and different kinds of art, other kinds of art, which I'm not going to get into right now. I'm going to stick to drawing. Now here is, now look what I'm doing here. On the head, I'm drawing these horizontal lines, but they're curved because I want to make this character's face look up. Now, if you have trouble with different perspectives, sometimes this can be an easy help. So instead of just one of those horizontal lines where the eyes are, like that one, I also have another one for the mouth and the chin, where the underside of the chin would be. This way, it's a good idea to keep a character. It's a good way to show perspective and remember that when you're drawing, and also to show where everything is pointing, to keep everything there. Alright, so now I'm filling out this drawing a lot, and yes, this looks like a stick figure, and for gesturing, that's another great thing that people can do for gesturing or pre-drawing, is draw stick figures, because it gives you a good idea what the stance is, what the poses, and it lets you fill things out accordingly. Just make sure that you give a little more space for like elbows and shoulders and stuff like that, because you realize you have to draw these muscles inside of it. That's a regular stick figure that just has no shoulders whatsoever. It doesn't work. So try to give a little more space for things like shoulders and stuff. And here I am. Now I'm just going to be using circles now for the muscles. You know, one for the shoulder, one for the bicep, or two oblong ones for the bicep. One oblong one for the bicep and another one for the tricep. And here you go. One oblong one for the forearm, which I'm kind of turning into this squash shaped looking guy, just to designate, you know, almost a Popeye forearm, but just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And for those who have a hard time with hands, I find this method is actually pretty good for that. And I'm going to do a little small one right there for the elbow, which I had on the other arm. I just forgot to mention it. When it comes to fists or hands, I think this kind of helps when you draw the general shape instead of trying to draw each individual finger one at a time. If you draw the shape of the fist and then work the fingers inside of it, it kind of works that way. You know, it's kind of like ears, where if you ever look at the inside of an ear, it's really weird looking, and if you try to draw it exact, you end up getting tripped up, and it's a detail that you shouldn't get hung up on. But if you just draw something that suggests, it doesn't even have to be accurate. If you look at a lot of artists, the way they draw ears, it's nowhere close to what the inside of an ear actually looks like. But you get it, and no one really pays attention to it when they're looking at it. You just understand that this is a human face and that's an ear, and you don't really look at the details of the inside of the ear, but if you ever did, a lot of times you'll be surprised at how different they are. Anyway, my point of the matter is, if you just give something that suggests what the inside of an ear looks like, it's fine. People get it, as long as the outside is there. If you draw a fist or a hand, same thing. So, but I could get into that in another episode. Let's go back to the gesturing or pre-drawing now. And this, yeah, I would kind of say I'm going more into the pre-drawing phase now. And look, I'm making adjustments to the chest. I'm trying to compensate here with one pectoral, since his arm is raised. You know, it would stretch out a little more, which is a good thing that you could also do. And when you're getting that fluid motion like we did in the first gesturing, when you're trying to work on the motion and get that energy going and get that flow going, that's a good way to indicate motion or create certain lines that really indicate that someone's stretching. And it's good and important to remember those lines and remember that feel, because that feel is something that you kind of can't replicate too easily. You have to just kind of let it flow and then just trace over it. That's what I think. Anyway, so okay, I'm looking at this and I think it's looking pretty good. Kind of working on the legs here, and and everything like that. So I kind of think like this is a good place. Oh, and it's also a great way to also that original line to use as the middle line also for the abs, separating the abs and the pectoral muscles too. All right, so yet again, light pencil work, so it's easy to erase. This time I'm erasing that arm because I don't like that pose. I think it's a weird pose. I just realized looking back on it. And again, there's no shame in erasing, okay? You don't have to nail it out of the park the first go around. This is the beauty of gesturing, is the fact that you can make changes really easily. And so I wanted that arm to extend out a little bit more so I can have a little more shoulder. Yet again, a little more shoulder. And I'm going to have the arm facing down now. And it's just something I noticed from looking at it when I was looking at the figure. It was pretty good. I feel it could be a little bit better, so I decided to start over. And again, no shame in that. So erase that arm, reposition the arm, and the gesturing, because it's easy, it takes no time, it takes no effort. So you don't, you're not all upset that you have to erase something really good. So let's do another one. Let's do another full figure this time. Okay, so I'm going to do things a little differently yet again. I'm going to start with the head here instead of starting with that center line. I'm still going to do that center line though, so don't think I won't. So let's do that center line. And again, let's give it some curvature. Let's not just do a straight line. Let's show that this character's in a little bit of motion. And I'm going to get into a little bit more what's something you could do in the pre-drawing phase that'll give you a little more motion. But first, let's work on the stick figure. Let's do the stick figure again. Again, leaving room for his shoulders, and I'm kind of flowing with this one. You know, I'm not sticking to a specific idea as much drawing. But here, this is now we're going to get back to this later and why this is important. But right here, I'm going to draw this little torso section here. Once again, this is a different kind of gesturing or pre-drawing, and then I'm going to draw the pelvic section. It's almost like action figures or toys or dolls where they have those little, pelvic sections and the, torso section. And again, I'm going to show you why we're doing it this way instead a little later on. All right, but here you go. So first I started with the arm. I just had that nice little sweeping arm, and now I'm looking at it and I'm just drawing the fist at the end again. If you draw the fist or the hand, pre-draw it, just draw a general shape. And sorry, it's a little out of focus. I don't know why that happened, but don't worry, it's coming back. Okay, now for the legs, I'm not going to draw the stick figure legs. I'm actually just going to draw them out. This character is going to be female, in case you haven't picked up on that. So I'm going to be drawing out the legs. And I like this stance. I like this pose. It's pretty good. Just a few details I want to work on and a few more pre-drawing things I need to add or gesturing things I need to add, like the lines on the face. Once again, I think this is very important for establishing which direction the character is looking and making sure they all line up. And it keeps that look in mind, which is why I went back to adjust it. But here you go. So now you get an idea of the face and you get an idea of where you're looking at. I think it's very important to draw lines like this for stuff like clothes or anything like that. Anything that you're having trouble with, if you can draw lines to show where they're crinkling, they're folding, they're meeting, or where they're looking, it really works. Now, okay, so here's the pose. A few things I want to change a little bit. It's pretty good. The overall stance is good, but I want a little more detail work. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a little bit more work on specific key details of this drawing. Okay, so let me go back in. And by details I mean just the way things are situated. I want just a different look to it, or I want to finalize it a little more. Like the hand, I think the hand's a little big, so I want to shape it down a little bit. And the legs, I actually think need to be a little more dynamic, so I want to put that there. And you know what? Let's just erase the fist altogether and just start again. There you go. Okay, there you go. And this hand, I like this hand, so let's just work on that pose just to make it clear, because the other thing about gesturing, even though I say use a light pencil, if you want to indicate something more or you like something a little more, you can just work on that and make that a little bit darker. That way it doesn't erase as much as the rest of the drawing, and that was an important line that you liked. And so now I'm going to start fleshing things out with the arm here. And now I'm going to put the curve in the back to meet the pelvic section, stomach section going up. Same thing. Now, I want to erase a little bit. Now, I'm going into the pre-drawing phase, and I realize that, hey, I think that torso could be a little bit better, or I think it could be less pronounced because it's a little far. It's a little bit far. All right. so, okay, readjust that center line. Now, here's the reason why I have that pelvic section and the torso section. See, I drew these dots in the center of mass of both places, and I drew a line straight down. Now, the key to drawing a dynamic pose, now this is an old Kirby technique, is to make sure that if you draw a line straight down from both of the center masses of the chest section and the pelvic section, they shouldn't line up. They shouldn't be, if you draw a vertical line straight down from both centers of mass, they should not touch each other. They shouldn't be lined up. If they're aligned, that's a problem. The further away you can put them, within reason, of course, within reason, and I thought mine was a little too far, but the further apart you can put them is the more dynamic of a stance you can give them. They have a better stance to them. You know, think about it, whether the character is hunched over, like Wolverine when he's popping out his claws, or Superman flying, you see him vertically, or you see him flying vertically is kind of weird, but if you see him horizontal, those 2 points, if you draw a line straight down, they're very far away from each other. And that's the idea. The more dynamic, and yeah, Superman vertical flying now, or standing just perfectly still, or a character standing with a complete vertical base, yes, you can use that, but it's got to be in order to say something. If your characters are always standing like that, or majority of the time standing like that, that's a problem. So when you can, as often as you can, unless you're deliberately making a statement where you're trying to do that on purpose, make sure those dots are those center points of mass are as far away as possible. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work on the drawing a little bit more and complete it a little more. I'm going to start putting some more details in now that I got this stance, this more dynamic stance than her just standing straight up and down. I'm going to work on the hair. Now, I don't want to focus too much on hair. Again, that can be another episode, so I'm just going to give her a simple ponytail. And now, along those lines, I'm going to add her ears, as well as her mouth, nose, and, of course, eyes. Now, this is not really too much of a face tutorial, so I'm just going to give a brief overview. Once again, just doing it briefly. Now, I got enough of the drawing down. I feel confident in erasing. There you go. Feel confident in erasing the pre-drawing, and now I can start going over everything I just saw. Okay, didn't like that eyebrow, but I sped up the footage because this is about gesturing, and I just want you to see how this applies, but I don't want to focus on it too much. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw out the rest of the details, and unfortunately the camera went blurry again. Still working on it. Yeah, it's still coming in and out, but don't worry about it. You got the point. You saw the gesturing, so here we go. We're going to finalize the drawing just a little bit as the camera goes in and out of focus, working on the face a little bit more. I tend to focus on that. But, okay, so there you go. All right, so that's gesturing. Now, you can see how this takes shape, where it translates to the finished product as the finished product finally comes into play. So, yeah, that's the beauty of pre-drawing. You get to show what you want to do. You get to map out ideas a lot better. It's a great way to draw things. Yeah, it's something you should definitely do if you're trying to get into this. If you're just starting out, absolutely you should do that. But keep in mind, yes, professional artists do it as well. And a lot of them, if not all of them, do it. You know, have a pre-drawing in your head. Sometimes it's fun to just draw randomly and just see where things take you, but again, it's a very valuable skill. So I recommend you do this a lot and take some consideration of what kind of gesturing you do and how that kind of gesturing is going to translate to the final product. Maybe different gestures make different results for you. Okay, so there you go, how-to gesturing. Thank you so much for watching and being here. And if there's any subject you want to talk about or you're curious about, let me know down in the comments. So thanks again for watching, and as always, Dave knows.